Mediocre. Trash talking in sports is just part of the game. Every single person does it, every single person hears it, and every athlete is a part of it. And Richard Sherman is one of the most famous trash talkers in all of football. Now, the key to being a famous trash talker is that you can't just talk, you gotta walk the walk as well. What you do on and off the field must be extraordinary in order for you to be able to talk this much trash. But let's be honest, his trash talking is not the reason I look up to Richard Sherman. It's all what he's done throughout his life that's amazing on its own. Now, although he had a harsh upbringing in Compton, he ended up graduating high school with a 4.2 and got a 1400 on his SAT back in the day. He ended up going to Stanford. He got a 3.8, played football there, graduated with his master's and his bachelor's there. That's pretty remarkable. But let's be honest, he was a little mediocre in college football and got drafted in the 5th round. But today he led his team to get a Super Bowl ring with the Seattle Seahawks. Now, all of my teenage years were spent playing football, looking up to athletes like Richard Sherman. Not a single football game would have been the same without him. We were lined up against each other every day, and there was one guy who thought he was Richard Sherman, who thought he was the best, who thought no one could compete with him ever. But you can't really be Richard Sherman without the loudmouth trash talking, letting your opponent know that he was mediocre. Now, I keep saying that word mediocre, but the importance of that word is an iconic interview that Richard Sherman had. It was the NFC Championship game, the one right before the Super Bowl. He was trying to get his team to the Super Bowl with 3 seconds left. There was 1 play left. And they throw the ball deep, the other team does. And what Richard Sherman does is he gets up there, he jumps, and he swats the ball out of the way, gets his team the interception, and they get the win. The ball was actually thrown to one of the best receivers in the NFL. But Richard Sherman was just overcome with emotion that in this interview, when he was asked about that last play, all he could say was to describe his opponent was mediocre. He said, if you ever line me up with a player as sorry as him, that's exactly what you're going to get. Now, immediately after hearing this, I knew our football games as teenagers were never going to be the same. The references of someone being mediocre are never going to stop, and someone's always going to think to Richard Sherman if they get a nice swat of the ball. Everybody swore that they were Richard Sherman, and everybody wanted to be Richard Sherman. But the person like him, in reality, just brings hope to a person like me. We don't all grow up with the best circumstances, but that sure didn't stop him. We all talk trash. That's just how it is. Some people get away with it with any backlash, but some are looked negatively for it. Richard Sherman is that guy, and some people might even view him as a villain in the NFL. But to me, he's a hero. He came from the bottom. He could have chosen the life on the streets. He could have chosen to be a nobody and ruin his future. But he picked things such as school and football. He could have been anything he chose to do with his life, but he chose to do something positive and be the best at it. He may not be your typical hero, but he's a hero nonetheless.